Well, this is a dream come true.
Mhm.
This is huge for me. I would probably consider you're on my hero list.
Wow.
Okay. Matt Carter, you're in the band Emery, formerly in the podcast Bad Christian. Some of the topics you were talking about were basically, you in a sense, with some of your guests, but like predicted COVID. Like you were talking about Jordan Peterson before anybody was talking about Jordan Peterson, right? And so, anyways, there were a few things where, like, years later, now we're in 2025, and it's like, man, these guys were just ahead of their time. Even podcasting, you guys were one of the very first Christian podcasts in the world. So.
It's been always true that people will say the thing about being ahead of, and I'm aware of that, and I think that way, but the way to really think about it for me is that it just is like patterns. It's just patterns. It's not a future that I don't have any thoughts about. I see the future, but I make a lot of predictions, but those are kind of mathematical. I like to take guesses. I like to say just notions that come to me, and some of them are real or not, but they're just based on just patterns I see fundamentally. And then it just gives me this intuition and then I have no problem just saying whatever, like I don't never know what I'm saying until I hear it come out of my own mouth. And it's informed by just patterns that I pay attention to. And so I like to look ahead. And a lot of times I'm ahead or early on things. And it's very cool to have a body of work like the podcast where, it's not that I'm proving it because I don't know what I'm saying about the future now, but it's continuously in that same posture for me. So that is kind of the way that I live. I'm looking at stuff in the past. I'm feeling what I'm feeling now. I'm looking ahead. I'm doing all that at the same time. And I don't know the answers, and I don't care if I'm wrong, and I make more mistakes than anybody. And that's just kind of where I sit.
Yeah. Why do you think you're like that? Did you notice this as a kid? Like doing wild things, maybe? Did your parents
Yes.
ever say that, like, how was that? What was it kind of like for you growing up? Like,
Me particularly growing up, if you as it would relate to this, as I was very verbal. I was speaking as a kid in this way. I would talk a lot, and I would talk more on an adult level maybe when I was a kid. Not like, but I didn't act like an adult or anything like that. I'm a kid, but I would speak about things with adults in a way that was odd, and a lot of adults don't like that. I've always been in this way where I grew up in the rural South, and there's this whole culture there of like authorities, everything, and respect for your elders and all this stuff. And none of that was good for me. I can't do it. I don't do it. I just don't have that. So that was present right away with me, is that I'm going to speak to a kid or adult or anybody the same way I'd speak to anybody. And again, I don't know if I can control what I say. That's more of how I think about it. I'm just here saying what I'm seeing and thinking. And my parents were really okay with that. Like, they respected me and included me in conversations, and we had conversations from as early as I can remember. My parents also fought a lot, and that seemed normal to me too. So that's just how I came into the world, is arguing about stuff that even, it doesn't bother me. I enjoy the sport of arguing, to explore ideas, to find things, and that gets me in all kind of trouble, always has.
love it. Okay, so you're talking about patterns. I
Mhm.
call them algorithms.
Okay,
And,
works for
and
me.
I, I'm a futurist too. I don't know if at the level you are, from the perspective of, like, I feel like you just say it. I feel like I try to maybe control my tongue a little bit more, if I get maybe biblical.
Mhm.
Um, but I am a futurist, so maybe that's why I resonated with some of the patterns that you were talking about. But I see it in the sense of algorithm, and I'm like, wow, everything is an algorithm. Like, life is an algorithm. There's a decision that needs to be made at every turn, and that decision will like bifurcate or get divided into more decisions that come up, right? But as humans, the interesting part is that we're related to one another, right? We only have, as far as we know, one planet. So it's really interesting that some of those algorithms interconnect us. So that's, to me, that's kind of like the beauty of humanity. Like, wow, we're so interconnected. And even when I think like family, right, and legacy, and maybe if I think of my grandparents and my kids, it's like, oh wow, like this is a journey of life in which we're somehow interconnected through a hub we call family. But bigger than that, society is interconnected because of these same like patterns and algorithms, right? So that's kind of like how I see it. But okay, here's an idea.
Let me jump in right there and just get with you, because I very agree with the interconnected thing. And I really like the way that you started saying we're interconnected as like a family and then as a society. And I think that's one of the things, if you pay attention to algorithms or patterns or things like that, that I'm always looking for is I'm looking for things that are true. And a lot of times things that are true at like multiple levels. So, or in a way that fractals are. So if something's true in this relationship or my family and society, I'm looking for that unity all the way out. Like so I would take that idea you just said, I would just keep going until is every atom in the universe interconnected? I don't know, but I'm going to hold that idea open until it doesn't make sense. So I'll take, any idea that works on a small level. I'm saying, how big is this idea if it was applied at different levels? And then that'll get me to all kind of weird thoughts. But yeah, I do agree that the interconnected is an important one, because it takes, if I'm just by myself thinking, that's very limited and I get far off. But as soon as I'm recognizing I'm connected to another person, and like on Bad Christian Podcast, I'm holding Toby's mind and my mind and whatever's happening there. So I feel like I have access to more than just me. And that's how I know we're interconnected, because I can feel me having more knowledge or ideas or thoughts when I'm feeling a connection to another person. And then I can have ideas that we can have ideas together. And that just keeps going and going for me.
Love it. Yeah. Okay. So here's a interesting thought idea. It doesn't come from me. It comes from a scientist out of Oxford. Okay. So his name is Vlatko Vedral, or Vlatko Vedral. He's kind of like from Poland, I think. So his name is weird to pronounce to me. But Vlatko, Vlatko Vedral. And he's got a book called Quantum, the Universe as Quantum Mechanics. No, the universe as information. The universe as information. So anyways, kind of like to summarize his idea, that this kind of like blew my mind. And to give a little bit of context to what I'm about to say, I think, and you mentioned Bad Christian Podcast, I think one of the things I'm grateful for listening to the Bad Christian Podcast was that you guys came up with ideas and opinions that maybe were not necessarily like the generic Christian opinion, right? You were allowed to think outside of the Christian box bubble in a sense. So I really appreciated that. So with that kind of like context, that kind of like catapulted me into a little bit of, I guess the term is kind of like deconstruction. So that was helpful, to kind of like deconstruct my faith, like set it apart, see all the pieces. To me, it wasn't about like destroying my faith. It was more like, okay, it's laying, all the pieces are on the table. How do I rebuild this again, maybe from a different lens? So I started doing that. So all of that to kind of like connect it to this idea I'm about to say from Vlatko Vedral. He says, the universe is not made of matter. The universe is made of information. Okay. And he's got a whole book and several books on this, and he's a scientist, so he's probably way smarter than me. But at the core, it's like, wow, that makes, to at least from my end, my vantage point, my Christian faith even makes a lot of sense. When I read scripture and I read like John 1:1, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word is God, right? And he became flesh. I'm like, that's information. Yes. And then
Yes.
my whole like quantum mechanics and all of that is like ones and zeros make a lot of sense. And if I tie that to the idea of algorithm, it's like, oh wow, it's either a yes or a no at the basic level. So ones and zeros, right? Ones and zeros. And then from there, it's kind of like what you said, small idea, like how far can I take a one and a zero? So to me, it started with a yes, like life is the yes against a no, which would be maybe no life, maybe
Right.
death
Existence or non-existence,
or
being and non-being.
non-existence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So that was super helpful, so all that to say, kind of like in closing it all under the Bad Christian podcast, allowing me to think outside the box, resonating with ideas from a scientist. I'm like, wow, this makes sense. And then I kind of like started rebuilding, like you guys were talking on the Bad Christian to like Jonathan Merritt. Like I remember a lot, listening to this guy, and he had a book called Speak God or God Speak, something like that. Man, that book was super helpful because in a sense, basically his premise was we cannot, as a believer, as somebody that encounters a text, we cannot shy away from the phrases that are in this text anyway. Like you can reconstruct, you can think about it differently, but you cannot call it something else than what we already have. So like sin, I mean, the Bible talks about sin. Okay, so you might have to approach it a different way, but the word is sin. It might come from the Greek and all these things, but there's a word called sin. There's a guy named Jesus. There is a God. There's these ideas of angels. There's these ideas of demons, right? Like all these things where he was maybe saying we can rethink about these, but we cannot like unname them or change them. Like there's no interchange to something else. So anyways, what's your take on all of that, from
Okay. I want to say that all that to me is great, Graham, because just to make sure if anybody is, I can ground myself here philosophically by saying I am not a postmodern person who believes there is no absolute truth. That's not me. So that I understand that way of thinking. But to me, the things that are real, no doubt about it. They're absolute. There is truth. There is a reality. I don't think it's this physical one that you think it is. That one is what we perceive as reality. I don't think is really very real, but there is something real behind that, or that this all points to. So just to be clear, I'm not a postmodernist, and so in that way, but I think of all the things you're saying, like with the word deconstruction and reconstruction, as a very healthy process of renewal. And you can think of it all like Legos. Like if you my son builds a bunch of Legos, and then he changes them and modifies them and rebuilds them into different configuration, but the pieces are there. There's the long skinny one, there's the whatever, and you're saying there's angels, there's God, there's these elements that are here, and you see them resonant in other religions and other contexts and these ideas. And within the Christian context, everybody has different interpretations of them, but these things that everybody has different interpretations of must point to real things. But the real things are not words, and I don't think the real things are, physical in the sense that you can really track down what they are physically. Those two things I'm pretty loose on. And so then you have this giant sandbox to play with of how you could configure things to make sense out of them in your own reality, that from your own perspective, all you've got is yours. I can't really be in anybody else's perspective. So I have to stay located in mine, and I have to take the pieces of things that are real, and I have to put them in a configuration that can work for me. And me personally, I have to keep as much openness as possible so that I can reconfigure, which sometimes is deconstruction, or sometimes is demolition, or whatever term. Destruction is a part of renewal. You need a little bit of that. You have to be able to do that for things to grow. So I'm happy in that sandbox. So if you want to go into a specific one, that's how we go. We talk about demons or whatever you want to talk about. We can just go there.
Yeah, I think I would love to talk about love
Okay.
and like, how do you love?
Awesome. I like to find other people who talk about topics and then take what I can from it. And I love it when it seems like it's not new but old or timeless kind of things that are wisdom about such topics. And on love, currently the best the best stuff I've gotten on that comes from a book about Socrates by Agnes Callard. And she was on the Bad Christian podcast. I don't know if you saw that episode. It was been 2021 or something. But she's a philosopher and she's obsessed with Socrates. And she wrote a book. I don't remember the name of it. But anyway, it's Socrates' book. But there's a big chapter in there about love. And what I think this is Socrates' kind of idea that you love is when you're I'm going to butcher it, but the feeling that it gives me is this one where it's a dialogue, which I love that part, that interconnected thing where you go back and forth to find truth, but it's not there's the version of love where you burn with passion and desire to either possess another person or fuse with another person. That's the not great. That's the almost failure modes of that ecstatic feeling of love. But what's really there is to pursue truth together and grow, which always feels like a back and forth dialogue. And it's always got this um, forward, higher movement to it where you're discovering things together. Because if you're in a relationship that's loving, you're constantly having like conflict and tension in there. And to resolve that is to both is to sacrifice and hold space for the other person as you both get closer to truth. And then in the Christian context, they'll say it with that triangle. It's like if we grow closer to God, we'll get closer to each other. You know that one? I think that's actually pretty close to how that works. But God, specifically, that is often turned into, and that means, and then all this baggage comes. But I kind of like that image.
Well, yeah. So discovering truth together and
Mhm.
dialogue are big love components to you.
Interconnected, holding space for where you can discover truth in dialogue. I'm just saying I'm inclined to that idea. I'm not saying that's the totality of how to define love, but that's the thoughts on my mind about love recently.
Yeah, and you mentioned sacrifice too. So
Mm.
what is that? Can you pinpoint to like moments in your personal life where you love sacrificially, maybe even?
Well, the easiest thing I find to always try to relocate everything to is as kids. So you're either a child or a parent, or you're both a parent and a child. Like everybody's at least a child. So everybody knows that relationship. And you have a father and a mother, whatever. That's the configuration everybody knows, so everybody can relate to that. So I think it's always worth checking any idea with, how does that work with my kids, or how does that work with my parents, or whatever, because everybody can do that. And it's the easiest thing in the world to understand sacrifice with kids, because you bring them here, you call them into existence without their consent, or you know what I mean? I don't know how that works. Maybe they consent from some other realm to come here. That's possible. But you bring them here and then you're responsible for them. So you take this responsibility for them and they have to go ahead of you. And you could control them. You can control them, but you don't want to control them. You want them to stay separate from you and grow and even escape or transcend you, and you not own them, but yet you're the one that has to put in, you're the one that's responsible, and they're the one that emerged beyond you. And I love that version of love. That's all. It's like a lot of sacrifice there, and you don't even get them. In the end, they go away from you.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. And in that exchange, or I don't know if we call it exchange, but maybe letting go, helping them grow, mature, become their own being. Yeah, I see it as I'm a dad too. I have 3 kids. To me, it's the greatest privilege I've ever had, like
Mm.
as a, I guess as a human. It's like, wow, this sense of like fatherhood, of like mentoring these kids. I remember when my oldest right now is 16, but when he was born, I remember just holding him and just thinking, wow, this kid like came naked. And
Yeah.
like he doesn't know a thing about what he's entering into,
Mm-mm.
other than whatever I'm gonna be here to show him, And it was really sweet and bittersweet at the same time, because a
Right.
part of it is like everything he knows is because of me, but then it starts expanding and it starts going beyond just me and my wife to, okay, there's we no I have my mom who also started interacting with him, and then he gets old enough to like, okay, now he's in preschool, so now he's going to be taught things that come from outside of whatever I've taught him. Now he's in high school. So to me, it's been like a huge journey of kind of like letting go, but being a part of like pouring into him
That's right.
from, at least from what I consider maybe my values, or, what I consider maybe good. Right. And that's all I try to maybe pour into him. So anyways, that's all that to say, that's been the greatest privilege of my life. So um when we're interacting, like right now we're talking about love, we're talking about family, but this idea comes to mind as you're saying, kind of like letting them go and be their own being. But what do you think about the idea of persuasion?
Okay.
Whether it's for you just in general, but maybe even as you're talking about maybe a little bit of faith. um, like, do you try to persuade your kids in a certain way? Like I tell my kids, I love Jesus, things like that. I pray for them, things like that. Some people might say, okay, I'm indoctrinating them, and that may well
Right.
be.
Okay. Well,
uh,
you're located in just a wonderful place to explore there. So I'll give you some of my thoughts that I know and then see what comes out. But um, persuasion, I have the problem of being persuasive, and then I have the problem of wait, but I've always had the problem that I can get people to do what I want. I can persuade people. I'm persistent. And I'll have a lot of mistakes where I've talked people into stuff that it doesn't work if it's me talking them into stuff. So I believe that people need to have their own energy for stuff and then I can interact with them. But there's a right way of doing that. And it's really hard because when you want something or you want something from somebody or you want something for somebody and you just are determined to persuade them of it, even if you can force that to happen. Force obviously doesn't sound right there. And the word that I know is wrong is coercion. I know that I do not believe in coercion. And so then you're playing mind games with yourself to wonder where you're at on the spectrum of persuasion, manipulation, influence. And there's no way you're ever going to know the right answers. Indoctrination, that's all in the soup that we're in. And so if you apply that to kids, the first thing that I think of is I would go all the way fundamentally back to the way you said that they come here and that you teach them everything they know comes from you, and then from outside that, and then further and further expanding. My belief is that you come to this earth with stuff. I think that you have a lot that you know that you don't learn here. I believe that there's a lot of innate knowledge, and you call it all kind of stuff from the collective unconscious to whatever stuff. Or just something in the soul. There's stuff that I believe you come here with right away that you bring to the world. I think children come into the world and bring something, and it's our job to steward what that energy and what that is. And it's not necessarily linguistic concrete knowledge in the English language of propositional things. You have to get them there, but they come in and you don't teach them how to walk, and you really don't teach them how to talk, and you really don't even teach them the language. They come here with the drive and energy and desire to grow and expand. And then even if you don't give them any facts or knowledge, they'll know stuff. I mean, most of what they know does not come from you. They either get it from experience, or I believe in the more magical idea that you beings come here with, they know stuff somehow. But that's a mystery. I don't have any answers for it, but I'm looking for what is in people that they didn't get from society. That's what's most exciting to me. And so then I have to interact with what I think my kids are and what they have. And I want to try to not control them. But my gosh, do I want to manipulate things for them. And I think some parents, you'll see them where they want them to go to Stanford and have X and have this life and be some extension of them, and manipulate or persuade them into to believing what they want to believe and tell them what to believe. And you can condition a child into that usually pretty easily. Some kids are so rebellious that they just won't let you. But where does that come from? The amount that a kid says no to its environment, that's what's exciting to me. What are they resisting? How do they know to do it? That's exciting to me. But that's exactly what I'm interplaying with my kids, because they think they know everything, which is weird. Like a 6-year-old, they think they know everything. They think they know what's safe and what's not. And they even have ideas about cosmic stuff. This is how this works. And they speak confidently. And you go, but they don't know anything. I go, well, they don't know something, but they do know something. So that's what we're always interacting with. And then how much do I want to persuade? And if I'm able to implement what I choose, have I stepped on something? And that's what I feel like I'm swimming in most of the time.
Wow. Yeah, that's a complete new world in a sense to me, but it's cool. And it seems to me like when you're saying they're resisting, like that's a little bit of you, right? Like you're in a band, and I feel like part of like I was in a band too. I thought here's a funny thing. I thought I was gonna be kind of like the Spanish John Foreman.
I like it.
Okay, and I'm gonna show you a video in a little bit where I did an interview, and you guys were on this interview. It was Emery, I think 2012, 2013 at a Creation Fest. So I'll show you a clip just to see that we were together at some point. But part of being a musician, I think there's that resistance, right? And maybe that, in a sense, rebellion. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff you were saying, with your kids, and where do these things come from? I think from my language might sound really Christianese, and like I said, I tend to be like biblically based. That's just how I'm wired, and after my, let's say, reconstruction, I just lean in so much into the idea of the kingdom of God. But also, as you're talking, maybe kids come with something from this other world. I'm like, yeah.
Maybe they come from the kingdom. Maybe they come here from there.
No, I mean, I totally.
Maybe they bring the kingdom here.
I would say yes. I mean, the kingdom of God belongs to them, to
I think
little children. And the idea of the image of God, I think, to me, it's kind of like what you were expressing. These kids come with something innate to them. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the image of God, and right. It doesn't need to look exactly the same on everybody. But also what I love, and this, now I'm leading into scripture already, but this is kind of like my reconstruction. The idea of the kingdom of God is just like massive. It's just how I rebuilt my faith. And it was just basically, okay, here's the Bible, but here's Jesus, and these are his claims. And at the core of his claims, he said the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, is now here. Mm-hmm. And if he's the embodiment of that, I love to pair it when he says in John, I'm not the guy that says, John 1:1 or whatever. even though I said John 1:1, because that
Mhm.
one I know. But in somewhere in John, I think it's John 14. But he says, everything there is to know about the Father, everything, okay? I'm just taking him at his word. Everything there is to know about the Father, I have made known to you, his disciples, right? So I'm like, okay, everything about the kingdom he has revealed.
Yes.
So that's how I started making sense of
Love it.
relationships and human interaction. And that's when I started to seeing a real thing for the things that have maybe no words. And I mean, we do have words, for like kindness or forgiveness or love, but we don't
Those
really
are just
see
words,
it,
though. Yeah. Those are
right?
just words. Yeah.
It's something that you need to it's almost like an exchange with another person
Right.
where when you extend forgiveness, the other person feels forgiven,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, okay, now a connection happened. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's the kingdom of God. And that's, if I tie it back to the idea of algorithms, I'm like, oh, okay, so the the kingdom of God is the ultimate God algorithm,
Right. I
where in
think
him,
that
yeah.
you will have a hard time if we could if we're from where we're sitting now. I bet it's going to be really hard for us to find something to disagree about. Um, and I don't need to do that. What I love about what you're saying is, let's just say that we come here, children come here, and they have the image of God, and the kingdom belongs to them, and they come from the kingdom of God, and then they come here, and Jesus is a child. That's how he comes here, the child of. That's the position, and that reveals everything. And everything that he revealed to the apostles was not words, and it was not text, and it was not propositional knowledge, and it was not rules, and it was not dogma. It's something else that he's talking about. And so maybe, and that's and it, the way that he gave them all the knowledge of God that you can have was just by his being and through modeling, through showing, through demonstrating, through being. And then you can get so much more from that than reducing something down to a word or a rule or a list. Not that. Um, and so it's like the modeling is what we do as parents. So my kids see me and then they decide that's scarier than me controlling them. But if I model to them, that's how they learn. That's how they learn to walk. That's how they learn to talk. That's how they learn from their peers. And then I guess some teachers are trying to tell them information, but who cares? And some religious person tries to tell them the rules, but who cares? That just doesn't matter to me. So that's where some people can disagree in application. But I'm focused on the things that are not, you can't put into words, but that's hard because we need the words, but all that so that we can intercommunicate with each other. And when we do, we're both changed by it. So that's another one of my rules that I have for myself most of the time that I'm paying attention to is I don't want to be in any exchanges with people where it's one way. It doesn't matter if I'm the high up status or the low down status. If I'm the low down status and some teacher's talking at me, I'm just not listening because they're not listening to me. So I don't care what they say. I do not care. Because if I can't affect them, then I'm just I don't buy that. And so, or if I'm trying to talk with somebody I really disagree with, has a scary idea, or my kids, and they think they know something they don't, they have to be able to affect me for me to be able to affect them. So that's a scary thing for a lot of people. You have to be willing to be affected by the interconnectedness for you to grow. And so I never want to be in the place where I'm telling somebody how it is, and I never want to be in the place where somebody's telling me how it is. Not interested.
Wow. Yeah, I would say probably vulnerability and teachability.
Right.
It's part of that exchange if you want to be a part of it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk about the future, whether it's the future of the church or society, by going back a little bit, okay? Because the bad Christian you guys were talking about, like I said, Jordan Peterson before he blew up, and now even the idea of podcast, and kind of like to make a really quick connection. One of the reasons I started Christian podcast was because you guys started Bad Christian. And I was listening to you guys from the very beginning because a friend that was in my band, Spanish rock band called Signa, he said, hey, these guys, Emery, have a podcast and they're just talking stories and kind of like what goes on behind the scenes at shows and stuff like that. That was so groundbreaking. I think now, I mean, it has exploded, right? Like everybody, like I have a podcast and my mom has a podcast. Like everybody has a podcast, you know? But, you know, to tie it back to the ideas you were talking about at the beginning, and like Jordan Peterson, I feel like you were so forward thinking, but I remember
what did I say about Jordan Peterson then?
You said something like, I'm kind of butchering it, but I'm paraphrasing. You said, I totally agree with him, but I don't want to, almost like I don't want to put him on a pedestal of some sort. You know, it's like, because you were always like the renegade in a sense, right? Like resisting. But it sounded like a lot of his ideas were making sense. So all that to say, you know, I feel like, man, like he was paying attention to this guy before the world was paying attention to this guy, right?
Yeah, I recognized him right away. And that's a hard thing, is because he's the people that are the most persuasive and very smart and know a lot. You know, they're able to get you to agree with them, and they're going to say things that are truths. And he does it in I'm familiar. I identify with him, but I also identify with the parts of him that I think are dangerous too. And so I've always had that sense that he's doing such a good job of these things, and he is using a lot of real things and truth, and he's doing it in a way that I can draw my own conclusions from, and he's doing it in a way that's subversive and challenging of things. So it's like I love all that stuff, and then I also feel that energy from him that is ambitious and driven in a pattern that I identify Mark Driscoll is the same way. I'm like, oh, he's like Mark Driscoll. And I wonder if he'll go be like Mark Driscoll in the end, because I would put Jordan Peterson, Mark Driscoll in a category of people who, my opinion is, talented, amazing, awesome, insightful, have all this skill and ability, and are good until they're lost, and then they're not good. That's what happens.
That's the part that you think it's dangerous?
I think it's very dangerous. Yeah.
Is it like my opinion is the right one?
Yeah, that's a danger for anybody. But if your gifts are rhetoric and charisma and communication in this era of mass communication and screens and propaganda, I don't know. I mean, you just turn up all the levels of power, and that's not going to go good.
Okay.
It can't.
Yeah. So it's so good, man. Because like now, like I was saying, everybody has a podcast. I have a podcast. And my main reason for having a podcast is, and I'll show you the video right now, but it was kind of like, okay, if this is the bad Christian, what if I just call it Christian podcast and I take out the bad, and that was my whole premise, because I thought I wanted to use Christian, like the word, right? Like most people would have their own opinion about what it means, but at least I felt like it was the entry point for a conversation. And I felt like podcast in essence to me was the ability to have a dialogue, to have a conversation originally, right? Now I feel like podcast just means like media. I think the word, like the actual word media,
it almost doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, but it has been replaced with the word podcast. And actually, this is kind of like going back to, like, I studied communications in Mexico. And I think the shift from our society from analog to digital, like back in the 2000s when, like TVs were analog, and now you got to do a digital antenna and that sort of stuff. And then the iPods came, and then, the society trying to describe, okay, what do we call this? And then the idea of, well, if it's on an iPod, iPad, whatever, we might have to call it a podcast instead of a broadcast. So I just saw a kind of like societal shift from analog to digital, where everything digital is a podcast, right? It's not a broadcast anymore. It's not just airwaves that are analog traveling on space. Yes, there's still signals that we don't see, but ultimately it comes on a digital device. And I think that's okay. That's what a podcast is. It's not a broadcast anymore. It's a podcast. But anyways,
It's just a form of broadcasting or mass communication. It's not one to one. It's one to one, but it's still being sent out. So right now I'm talking to lots of people, not just a one-on-one, and it's not a group either. It's unlimited distributable piece of media, and that's something.
So that was a interesting transition as a society, right? Like we went from, now podcast means something to people. Even when you guys started, it was mostly audio. Now I feel like when you say podcast, most people are assuming I'm going to watch something on YouTube.
YouTube is the number one consumption of podcasts. So that means that it is, in fact, just everybody has a TV channel is the reality. It's right now everybody has a TV channel. Podcast did mean it does carry this air of independent or uncontrolled or from the bottom up of the people versus a mainstream outlet or a media company. Podcast implies that it comes from an individual. I think that's kind of what the meaningful distinction.
Yes. So one of those podcasters there's two of them that are on YouTube. One of them is Mark Driscoll, who's got a growing YouTube channel, and therefore audience. The other one is Jordan Peterson. And one of the things Jordan Peterson said a few years ago, maybe after COVID, like 2021 or something, he's like, legacy media is death. Right. So to your point, now the individual has the capacity to almost like build their own platform through YouTube or through websites or whatever, but really also through their voice and maybe expertise. And this is a part that ties to the danger you were talking about, right? So what do you think about these individuals having such massive like followings or channels or audiences? Like what does it stir in you, like coming, like I feel like you guys started this, and what do you think, like, oh, what has it become?
Yes. Well, it's really exciting and really scary. I mean, I'm afraid of it. It's bad. It's exciting. A lot of good stuff. I mean, it's definitely all of that. I had Jordan Peterson scheduled for an episode in 15 or something like that. And he was in a hotel room and he had bad internet and he canceled, or else I would have a conversation with Jordan and I. So I was wanting to see what that felt like to interact with him, but I picture it. And what I see or would worry about in him is, and the same with Mark Driscoll, is they're so aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it. They have a high level of understanding of what they're doing and how it works. They get really I think that they get lost really easily, and especially corrupted by growth and amount of what they can be attached to in a movement. Like their place is somewhere in a movement, being influential in a larger movement of something. They seem to really understand that, and so I don't feel that they're as independent or unique as that they should be. And I think that's where the missteps come, because you can be independent, you can have your own unique and independent thought, and that will leave you just random in all these random places, and it's not that growth oriented. But once you recognize there is a demographic, there is an agenda, there are narratives, you can't help, if you think that way, you can't help but be corrupted by it. And so that's my view, what happens to those people.
Wow. Yeah. And Jordan Peterson specifically, like he's part of, for example, Daily Wire, which became a platform for podcasters and kind of like under Ben Shapiro. But from there, it grew into almost like a new legacy media of some sort, right? I feel like we're still experimenting as a society what the next legacy media is going to be, right? But part of it is like these new companies that are coming up on the internet and realizing, okay, there's still the same power that the legacy media had.
It's the same.
Now we just need to leverage it in a different way through YouTube and social media.
But you'll just repeat the mistakes of, I mean, everybody's a revolutionary until they take the Capitol, and then they become a conservative right away, and they protect it and grow. You can't help that. There's no way around that. Their narrative is about legacy media is dead, and they will become it, and they are it. Okay, when we started Bad Christian Podcast, it was like breaking out of Mars Hill, and like I could see everything that was wrong and went wrong there. It was obvious, and I knew what was wrong there, so I did not that. And then some people would say, yeah, but how are you any different? Because you're doing that, but you're just doing it this way. And I was like, oh, you're crazy. I couldn't be more different than Mars Hill. And we couldn't be more different because we're doing the things the different way, the way that we see it. And then eventually it's like, well, Bad Christian just kind of ended just kind of like Mars Hill did. We did become it. Oh, well, wow. I guess that does happen. I get that now. Wow. That is how it works.
Yeah. So you think you became it?
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, not literally the same. That's what I'm saying. It's not about the exact things. It's I'm in this pattern way.
Yeah. And
it becomes established thing that you have to protect or whatever. And it has its own, once the culture recognizes as a certain thing, then you're distinct from the culture and you're interacting with it in this way, and then you have to try to manage it and control it. And that's different. Once you're managing and controlling and maintaining something, that's different.
That's very punk rock attitude. I think it just ties to your idea of like, I'm gonna take an idea and I'm gonna like go as far as I can with it, almost without thinking of the consequences.
Right.
And that's just very punk rock, and that's something I admire of you. Like going back to like, you're one of my heroes is because of that. And I think one of the ideas of punk rock rebellious attitude was that, like, for example, you used to say on Bad Christian, like, I'm just trying to kind of like remember the phrase exactly, but it was something along the lines of like, we're doing like Bad Christian. It's a platform to promote our band. Like really the goal was for the band to like continue to do music and all of that, which is like fringe, right? Like your music was like hardcore, like screamo stuff like that it's not pop, right? And in a sense you had a platform that always had that goal in mind, and in a sense it was almost like, well, that is the goal and that is it, and I feel like you accomplished it. Like, would you say like Emery is still a thing? It's still going. And
it definitely was hugely awesome. It's easy for my personal trajectory to say the band was big, it really succeeded. Then at the time when that scene is down and there's less to do musically, all the bands are struggling, that genre was struggling. And then the podcast broke. It's like this whole other thing that became successful in its own right that also helped float, maintain, sustain, and then slingshot Emery back afterwards. So then the podcast thing went away in its cycle. And that's been 10 years. So it's like almost 10 years of each that they kind of, almost cycles. And now the band is back where it is. And that's been going on for a few years. And then that'll go down again and something else will happen. But I like to try to interconnect those chapters so they're, how could you not take what you have and put it into the new thing? But the new thing has its own life. If the podcast had its own trajectory in life and death. Things have that. The band, I don't know why is lasting so long. I don't know, but that's awesome. But I do think music is probably more powerful than talking, probably. But I also wanted to do the podcast because I felt that I have thoughts and ideas, and you put out an album every couple of years and it's poetic and lyrics, which I don't even write the lyrics and stuff. And I love to talk, and explore. So the podcast was just an outlet to do that. And of course, I'm going to talk about my band and the thing and the stuff I'm struggling with or wrestling with. And it's like an exercise or a discipline. And then it also made money. It also was fun. It also, I mean, it accomplished so many things. So I wouldn't want to limit the podcast was just for this one thing, but it was lots of things because it was its own thing that had its own life cycle. But it died.
What's next?
I don't know.
You don't know. You have like what? Your ideas are crazy. So what's something that you're thinking of?
Well, I am trying to. You can probably tell by the tone of the way I'm speaking now. I'm still mostly kind of reverse engineering from the experiences of the band and the podcast. I'm trying to universalize everything that I've experienced and learned to be able to pull, in reflection, and especially when things don't work out or are sad, like the ending of the Bad Christian podcast. It's a lot to learn from that kind of stuff. So I like the idea of trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work and what I've seen and not seen, and then use that style of thinking in other organizations and groups of people and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm involved with a bunch of different kind of organizations and stuff. And I really am, I really am interested in something that came up a lot on the Bad Christian podcast is children and child development and education in schools. I really like that rebellion thing that we're talking about. That's not going anywhere for me. So to put all those things together, what it probably, what I aspire to most is taking my experience of all that kind of stuff and then translating it into art. As silly as that sounds, I think there's higher levels of art to aim for. Music is the best one that I've been able to do the most, where I feel like sometimes I'm participating with something truly amazing or divine in the putting together of music and lyrics. And I'm never going to stop thinking that's the best thing. That is my favorite thing. It's what I've been doing since I was immediately, as soon as I was able to play any music, I'm trying to gather people together and make magic, special things happen. I can't imagine ever stopping doing that. But I want to be able to do that more and more with ideas and thoughts and put it into art because then it gives, it's like the opposite. See if this makes sense. And I don't know what art to make. Films, documentaries, podcasts, conversations, music, visual media. I don't know. But I want to take the experiences and ideas that I have and put them in things that are like art because people can take more from them what they get from it versus that prescriptive agenda narrative stuff that I would identify more with Mark Driscoll, Jordan Peterson, Daily Wire. That seems like they seem to, all those people are sharing ideas and space with me at some point, and then they're doing more of that with it. And I don't want to do that with it. I would have to go more in whatever's the art version. So I don't know what this, so I want to be involved with whoever's doing that stuff. And that's a lot more ambiguous than, I would say, I'm drawing the whole spectrum of art to propaganda across that. When you do art and you start mixing it with money and power, and it's like you have to do money. Like I do art and money, that's hard enough. And then when you add in spirituality, I can't resist. I mean, I'm so involved in spirituality, so involved with money, so involved with, creating ideas and making things. There's no way out of that. But they are in conflict. So I try to. I'm going to be on that puzzle, I guess, forever.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good, man. I feel like, the art, it's probably art is subversive by nature, right? So I think what I hear you saying is I'm going to do the art way of what's next. And I don't really know what that's going to look like, but I know that what it's looking like for other people is not art. It's more
No, it's
like
not
money
art. That's
driven.
not, there's an art form. I mean, like everybody has a way of like being their unique self and that transparent, whatever that language would be, your own authentic self. There's an art form to just being you for everybody. But the more it starts to look like these other patterns and algorithms that you can recognize, it starts to look less like the unique person, less like the child that came here with a unique perspective, less kingdom
Mm.
values over time. Like kingdom values come here, you have I don't know, like those, that's, I can't put too much more language around it than that, but those, all that kind of works for me. And then propaganda and narrative and stuff like that, it's hard to resist.
Wow. That's so good, man. Okay. And we're not even going to talk about AI because we could be here probably for another hour and where that's leading. But that's probably another piece where, you guys were pretty uh, at the forefront, just talking about different ideas, whether it was
I
AI.
really think that was one that I was talking about way
Really?
before everybody else. That particular one has been really clear to me for a long time. Not clear in what it was going to be, but I would, the two things in my life that I've always talked about that were, everybody has been mad at me for bringing them up. One is evolution. I
Mm.
under was fascinated by the topic of evolution when I was a young kid in South Carolina, and it's like if you said that word, everybody starts. They are emotionally angry before there's a discussion, and it's like that excites me so much. But it's crazy, when you get that feeling. It's like, okay, but I'm just saying that the not wanting to understand the thing is a signal to me that I like go crazy when there's a concept and you just barely float it out, and then everybody is agreeing that no about that. And AI was one of those. So I just thought it was fascinating. I think they're just fascinating things. But when I understood AI, and you could kind of see ahead enough, and there was people talking about it, and it's scary but also exciting. But and COVID was the other one. It's like, don't talk about that or I'm going to be mad at you. Not you're wrong or let's disagree about that, but if you're bringing that up, what even kind of person are you? Why don't you get out of here? You're, and then it's just whatever that tone of like, oh, and you just, when that happens to me, it freaks me out so bad. And AI, COVID, and evolution are the three topics that's like, okay, I guess I just wandered in a taboo by mentioning something, but I'm just mentioning it. And whatever that means always means something, whatever it is. So I always pay attention. That doesn't mean I know what any of that stuff is going to happen, but I
Mm.
stay on those topics usually. But you have to be careful because everybody gets mad at you.
Yeah, but they don't get mad if they watch it on a movie, right? Like if we see Terminator
But
and
movie's not
then
real.
until it starts happening.
But that's after. That's not when you see the movie. They go, oh, that was great because it was not real. And
Yeah.
then later when it happens, they go, that's crazy. The Matrix. It's like, but at the moment you weren't offended. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather get to that. I need to make the art, I guess, because everybody, if I just bring up the topics, everybody's going to yell at me. They
Mm.
won't listen to me. No, so it doesn't matter. But the stuff that's really something, you got to figure out how to put it in something. They go, well, that's not real. So I can pay attention to that. And
Mm.
then they'll have the ideas and then they can work with it later. That's one thing that art does that's kind of cool. It allows people to think about
Wow.
stuff that they're not allowed to think about.
Cool. Okay. I want to do the same, but less through art and more through entertainment, I would
Okay.
say. Um,
Oh,
yeah. Not,
I'm sorry. I just had a thought though. The thing
yeah.
that those all have in common,
Yes.
the one that makes people super upset is this idea that um, anything that doesn't have humans and their power and control centered are the
Mm.
ideas that, like, if evolution is scary because humans are the thing, and AI is scary because humans are the thing, and then I mean, I don't know, COVID was kind of different, but it's like you don't. It's too scary for you to think that it's not under control or you're not the center of, and it's not. It makes you feel unsafe. So then you have to just not let the idea in. I think is what it is.
Wow. Yeah, when humans. Okay, so my last, I guess, idea on this future thinking, maybe it's kind of like interchange with AI evolution, but really the future of society, and kind of like tied to the topics of like why these YouTubers or seemingly influencers ended up on YouTube. It's 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 kind of like the idea of transhumanism, and it's
Hmm.
kind of like what you're saying, when humans are not part of it. That to me, it's an interesting topic, because I guess if I think of the future, for example, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right, this whole idea with the idea like who is a trans, like a person who wants, like, he's in the wrong body, a man who wants to be female, female who wants to be, it's, to me it was more like less about like, okay, these people are crazy or not crazy, or mentally this or mentally that, or dysphoria. It was more like, okay, our society is trying to think of a future where we're pushing the envelope, and we're thinking we can experiment with our bodies in that sense. So I was like thinking about a future where, okay, probably the future will look like, have like a droid, a person, or what are they called, like humanoids or something like that,
Hmm.
where a person that has robotic parts. It might sound crazy right now, like you're saying, it might be the like the art piece where people are like, oh, okay, if I watch it in a movie,
Right.
it's okay. But if AI and all these things are really becoming what they're becoming, like I do see a future where, like, okay, maybe people will, like you guys were talking about, for example, like sex dolls and things like that. That
Oh yeah,
sounds
that's
crazy.
Toby's thing, but he's been talking about that for 25 years. I don't know.
Right? And now it doesn't sound so far-fetched, and you see the things that Elon Musk is putting out on X, and he's creating like all these AI doll girls, like stuff like that, where it's like, all right, yeah, we're probably gonna get there. And
Oh yeah.
humans will interact with it at some point, right? But I feel like, what do you see as like the future of that? If you think about it, like where does your mind go as far as like maybe like transhumanism or that
L-
type of
l-
ideas?
Let me address that one through the lens of Elon Musk himself. We haven't mentioned him yet. Um, he, you'll notice if you use the different AIs, if you'll notice if you use Grok, it or if you log on to X, you will find sexual content and sexual tone present. That's he understands probably. It seems like to me that he's making these robots, and he has literally his AI and digital platforms have more sexual tone than any other ones. I imagine those will come together sooner than later, and that makes plenty of sense. So, capitalistically, whoever nails that should be in good shape, and he probably will. That sounds right to me.
Wow.
So,
So
and
yeah,
how many years? I don't know. Just close that gap from the AI's Grok, and it wants
yeah.
you to go spicy right away.
Okay, here's
So
here's
then it can physically be there, and you'll buy the physical part once you're already connected to the relational part.
you think he'll be in this planet, or you think he'll try to do, we're gonna do this, but might as well do it in Mars, and I'll take you on an experience where you can do all these crazy things with AI robots, but maybe for the sake of keeping humanity separated from this other realm, we'll bring you to Mars, and that will be possible.
The Mars stuff to me is sounds like it is aspirational. I'm sure it comes from a genuine something somewhere, but I think it just is such a singular, strong, clear vision to attach things to that its functionality as a unifying vision is much more valuable than the real reality of who's going and what are they going to do and what does it mean long term. It really attaches to a reasonably great idea about we're stuck on this planet, or all we have is this planet. We might destroy this planet to escape this planet is the most human thing ever, just like crossing the ocean or whatever. So that's just an easy, open-ended direction. And now he's got that really specific thing to say, and then everything else can be a sub-function of that. So that's just a really unifying, useful thing. But I don't see it as that real of a goal. I think it's more functional as just a unifying vision than a big deal, because way before we can get there, I mean, we probably need to escape this planet. Probably. I get that. But we're going to be able to give experiences that are virtual of that much more than we're going to really want to go that anywhere. I don't think space travel mostly makes sense more virtually than physical bodies going across space is less. I think that's less likely.
Yeah, no, I agree. The idea, for example, I've been here, that's another story, but like I've only know of other places in the world because I've seen pictures and videos. And in a sense, I feel like, well, I've been there. I've been to the Great Wall of China because I've seen videos. I'm sure the experience would be awesome to be there and actually, walk on these things. But in a sense, I don't feel detached from the idea because part of me has already experienced that through what's available now.
Which is good. Not bad. But, we'll probably get to experience a lot more, but they will be substitute experiences. And at some point, substitute experiences, sex robots fits this too, are preventative from actual experiences. Because, well, if I have this, why do I need to go to China? And if you could get a better virtual experience and a virtual tour with augmented reality or whatever, virtual information and a perfect tour guide, and you feel like you're there and you're exploring the Great Wall. I've been to the Great Wall of China, and I remember some of it, and it was a great experience and stuff. But I could probably get more out of a virtual experience in a technical sense. But somehow that'd be so different than the actual experience I had going to China physically. But those will get closer and closer together. But it'll prevent you from ever actually going to Mars or China or maybe on a date.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's you're going into the matrix now.
Right.
Okay. So last thing, where you were saying, what did you say? I forgot. Anyways, I'll show you this video. I don't remember the last thing I wanted to say, but let me show you this video real quick. See if you can see it. Do you see it?
Yep. That's cool. Oh, there we go. I see Toby. And is that you, the interviewer?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, awesome. And that was at what festival?
Creation Fest in Washington.
Okay. Oh, there's me. Yeah, I remember that. That was a cool one. That was when they did Creation out west here at Puyallup, I think is where that was.
UCLA.
Yeah, Enumclaw, right. Yeah, Enumclaw, that's right.
Yeah, I think it was like 2012 or 2013. That's my band. Yes. we were playing at the Fringe stage.
Yeah, the Fringe stage is awesome. That's where I belong. Like, that's where I identify. Like, I'm identified by culture as exactly that. Fringe stage at the Christian festival. That's my position in the world. There's no way probably to ever change that. Because I have a Christian, perspective. All my Lego blocks are Christian. And I'm never going to be, I wouldn't be, and I'm not going to be accepted by, that's just where I am. I'm going to be seen as fringe, and I totally, embrace that. That's fine. I like that spot.
Love it. So we were the first ever Hispanic band to play at the Fringe stage, and that was our first and last.
First and last. That's awesome.
Yeah, but anyways, when you said, what did you say? You were talking about like the sex dolls, like all these things. In my view, this is just kind of like a tidbit take it or leave it, even maybe just for the audience. But as I was talking about the kingdom of God, as I was talking about algorithm and ones and zeros and choices, to me, I feel like, when the Bible talks about the fruits of the spirit and it mentions several, kindness, joy, like gentleness, all these things. I love all those. I think those reflect what the kingdom of God is like this untangible, but being perceived through relationships, right? In that exchange of like forgiveness, kindness, like all these things. But the highest one that I found, and this is maybe in a sense, might just kind of like maybe come against or bump against your value. But the one I found the highest out of the fruits of the spirit is self-control.
Okay.
And it just makes so much sense when I put it in perspective of like understanding scripture, understanding decision making, understanding persuasion, understanding, like even you said, coercion. Is like, oh wow, this is the highest value. And no wonder it took, like, for example, Jesus said he fasted 40 days, right? That's kind of like a discipline to develop that sense of like self-control, and you might have to use it in several instances and cases, but when you're saying like this future where all these things will be available, like I tend to think the worst that could ever happen to a human is to discover, like, to actually make teletransportation real. Because it's like, man, like if I had the capability of being wherever I want whenever I want, it's kind of like social media in a sense. You could be with your family, but you're being sucked of your presence with your family because you might be on your phone, right? So your mind, your real you, is not there. It's not present. It's sucked right somewhere else. So imagine that, but in a physical reality where you could be teletransported to wherever you want, or you could have whatever you want. This might be also the idea of like C.S. Lewis, of like hell is everything you've ever wanted, right? I'm kind of like paraphrasing, but self-control is like, to me, it just feels like, oh, okay, this is genius. If this is the kingdom of God and it's a fruit of the spirit, it's genius, but it's a discipline and it's attainable too.
Okay, let me try to agree with you there. I mean, I hadn't thought about it. I don't know if the fruits of the spirit is in that verse is a complete list necessarily, or what I can't get into the exact. I don't know about the translations, the origins, or whatever. But even if there was a complete list and there's a highest one, is okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. And if there is a highest one, it's that one. And how do you know that? And why is that the highest one? Or is that just for you? I'm open on all that stuff. Also, I find it threatening because self-control is not my forte. So if it is the highest one, I won't even disagree. I'm just saying that is hard for me. But I won't, that won't make me attack that value. It obviously is a value, but I struggle with that one because I feel like I am, like you said, your attention, where you are, if you could teleport or do anything or use the phone, your attention in the present moment is all you have. You agree with that? Like all you have access to is what your attention's on now. Everything else is really not in your control. So if there's anything in our control, it is that thing. I still struggle to know what makes me choose what my attention is. If I could have anything, and I can, actually, it seems like even in physical reality, where my attention goes is going to determine everything. But what determines where my attention goes? I don't know.
Well, you kind of know. You have a house, you have a family.
Well, I mean, apparently this is what, like, what am I going to say? Like, where's the self-control come in for me? Where is it coming from? My choices, where are they coming from? I'm not denying we have choice or whatever. I struggle to locate the spot from which I do the controlling.
Mm. Yeah,
So
maybe I shouldn't have said maybe like highest value, but I feel like it's almost like the key, the entry door, like this is what opens the realm. For example, let's just put a husband and wife relationship, right? If there is self-control, then there is a sense of family. There is a sense of like, my kids see me as their dad and they see mom as their mom, and we're a unit. And because of my maybe self-control, well, I'm not trying to go out with a different woman than the one I made a commitment to because of marriage, maybe, right?
Okay, so the mechanism there for me, that's easy. I go, okay, great. Now I feel like I can get with you in saying that I would locate the mechanism by which self-control occurs as commitment. I'll take that. The commitments I have and make then seem to be where the outcomes will flow from, not momentary. Do you know what I mean? I have commitment, so I exist in this reality where I know what my commitments are, even subconsciously. I have a commitment to my kids. I don't have to use self-control. I have the commitment. It's present with me. It's part of me. And
But the
therefore,
commitment
my
was,
impulses flow out of those commitments.
yeah, but wasn't the commitment a little bit like the self-discipline of saying yes to something, right?
I don't
Isn't
know
marriage
about
like
that.
saying yes to something?
Yeah, but I might have said it on a whim. I don't know what made me say yes.
Well, how long you been married?
Like, I don't locate myself as, and this is the right choice. And I know, like, I don't have the certainty of the choice making anyway. I don't have it. But I do believe my commitment. This is where we'll get squirrely probably together. Is all I'm saying is I'm looking to reject the idea that it's a white knuckle self control moment to moment. I want to do this, but I have to do that. That doesn't sound right to me. But also, I'd have to say, if it's this commitment based things, you do have to understand that commitments are renegotiable and can change and do break. But that's, you can never know if you're making the right decision, even with your self discipline. You don't know if you're making the right decision anyway. But the commitments are these longer term things. But right now, struggle to do the hard thing, not the other thing. I don't believe that yields the best results. So the commitments are these anchors that are adjustable that you can work with. And I feel that a higher version of me can live within commitments I have. And they're also renegotiable. So
Okay.
a little squirrely, but that would be what I would consider as self-control and discipline for sure. I get it, but I mean, I'm just not naturally think of myself. I'm not proud that I'm disciplined. I struggle to do the disciplined things in life, but I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying I struggle with them.
What gives you joy?
Well, most joy is things that are spontaneous. I don't think that joy is in achievements. I know that really easily. There's not, I'll have joy if I win the lotto or sell a lot of records or get money or things like that. Things that you can list as achievements are not usually joy. Joy is usually found in the discovery and in process and in spontaneous things that you couldn't, joy is like surprise. It feels like a surprise usually. Like you can't calendar to have joy no matter what the activity is there, I don't think.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like, trying to make your kids happy or like bring them joy? Like, are you successful?
Well, if I might want to distinguish joy and happy. And that joy is joy is probably more complex and deeper, and happy is more momentary. And happy probably has more to do with swings of happy and sad. Like your happiness level and your sad level are probably the same distance from baseline. Joy feels like it's more of a kingdom value. It's more eternal. There's something eternal happening when there's joy. I love that.
Yeah.
I like the eternal things. Like what are they though? You know, they're not these. It's not this piano. It's not this thing. It's not even this. You know, what are the eternal things?
Yeah. Well, I think you have them
When
all
you're in
around your
tune with them, there's
household.
joy. Is all I'm saying. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I found, my experience has been, like I said at the beginning, it's just like family to me. It's if I become like super biblical, it's like, okay, this is where God has revealed to me all the kingdom values as I need to live them out, and maybe through sometimes, self-control or discipline, or this value of like maybe sacrifice, which is kind of like tied to self-discipline or self-control. How can I pass it on to my kids in order for our entire family to experience something outside of our own beings, which is, to me, it's like joy, like you're saying, it's eternal, right? So I feel like these value, like family, it's just probably like maybe my core value as a human is like, it just makes so much sense, that families are, um I would say, to this day, it's like the core of society, and if we get maybe like the terminology that we hear nowadays on like not biblical, but like the church world, is like, oh, family is under attack, right? Well, I feel like it's always been under attack, because that's the core of society. That's how it functions. It comes through a commitment to those around you. Like I was saying, my little kid knew nothing, and he'd probably be dead if there wasn't someone to care for him in the initial, like, to me, that's genius, that your first years of life you depend on somebody else for your survival, whether it's your parents, hopefully, right. That's the main person that should be your caregivers, but
there's some things to wrestle with about that. But I'm gonna agree with you about I'm going to agree with you in the sense that what you feel led or called to invest your attention and sacrifice to is probably going to yield joy. Probably. Because you go, I want to invest in something, but not like invest in crypto to get rich, because that wouldn't matter anyway. But invest through sacrifice in stuff that's, relational or eternal. Then there'll be sorrow and joy in those things. And most people are going to find that the most universal space that you'll find that is family, because it's kind of automatic. It's automatic. But isn't family limited if you name that as some ultimate thing? It seems like to me it falls apart in that, first of all, I think most families and conditions that children come into are less than ideal. And a lot of them are absolutely horrible. And far be it for me to tell all those people, well, the most important thing is family, and yours is horrible, and you should get away from them. That's a lot of people. And then there's people maybe even like me who, I came from a great family, super lucky and privileged. And there's two ways that can go, is like the way you're talking about your family. If you were unhealthy, you would control your children all their life and keep them as close to you as possible, because that's your value, and they need to stay right there with you, and their best relationship needs to be with you, and that can prevent them from transcending, going beyond the family into, you know what I mean? So that's some families are terrible, so you should get away from them, and some families are great and you should get beyond them. Those are hard things. There's sorrow in that, but there's a joy is in that too.
Yeah.
So, but if family isn't ultimate, I don't think.
To me, it just ties to the idea of family, like the family of God, or family in Christ.
Well, right, but that's an eternal thing. That's good. Yeah. That's beyond, like your worldly father, your biological father, your abusive mother. Not that.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Okay. So I have these emojis. Let me see if I can show them to you. So I'll tell you where they came from, because again, like, you inspire me so much. And I don't know how to put them on here. Let me see. I haven't done I haven't done Zoom in years, man. But let me see. I think it's video filter. Okay, might be this one. And then how do I put filters here?
I like that you're able to interact with the screen and show things. That's a cool thing in podcasting to do, to be able to do now.
Yeah.
I struggled so much with the early technologies and trying to figure out how to do it or have visual or video. It's like, gosh,
Oh, I
it's so
bet,
much
man.
easier now.
Didn't like COVID change all that? Like once COVID came,
Yep.
like, okay, now everybody can do it.
Yeah, and that's when I started kind of phasing out of podcasting. But yeah, that's when it
Mm,
all, you know what I mean? So I think I'll do more. This is
on the
well,
each of
the
these.
blasphemous idea that I am playing with here obviously would have to do with the family and the even family of what if you consider the church in its world. This is obnoxious, probably, but I'm just going to label your worldly family and your worldly embodiment of your church as worldly things. So that's I don't think that's blasphemous because I'm saying the eternal ones and the kingdom ones and the higher level ones, I'm trying to say are the real ones. But I think that that will come across as blasphemous and that I'm, talking down on or attacking the worldly versions of them. So I'm using the word worldly there kind of subversively. And I think so. That's kind of a blasphemous idea I think I'm sharing today or that I'm playing with.
Love it. Okay, next is skeptical. So where do you see skepticism or what are you skeptical of?
I'm skeptical of anything that is. I do that. Look at anything that's like an establishment, anything that's a counterculture or unique thing that becomes an establishment thing. Um, I'm going. That's gives me that posture where I want to be as skeptical as possible. So I'm looking for flaws in the systems that emerge.
Love it. Okay, inspired emoji. What gives you hope?
Um, well, I got to save some for these other two. Remind me what the other two are.
The other two are holy, and
Holy.
the last one is divine.
Divine. Okay. Well, hope then. Hope is in will be in the young people. Okay, I'm thinking right now. I have a daughter that is right on the border between Generation Alpha and Gen Z, and that one's really cool to me to pay attention to the differences. In these schools and middle schools and elementary schools, are there difference in values even in those generations? I'm kind of interested in that. I'm hopeful in what both of those have. I was born between Gen X and Millennial, and my oldest daughter sitting right in between that Gen Z and Alpha. And so, I think I'm more hopeful than Gen Alpha, but still, I like that. Those two generations I'm excited about and hopeful.
Love it. Okay, one to the last is the holy emoji. What's a holy idea according to Matt Carter?
I don't have that. I don't use that word a lot, but it would mean I would want to say, what's the opposite of holy? You got that?
I would say broken apart. I would say like disconnect.
Broken. Okay, cool. So holy. Well, this is easy. I don't know if this is even how the words work, but in my mind, I'm going to associate holy with wholeness, like whole, like meaning that the holy thing is like stillness and calmness, I think, is what I'm feeling about that. It makes me go, if it was the holy version of the thing, would probably not be as exciting and crazy and all these things. It's probably a balanced thing if it's holy. It probably contains the good and the bad or the dark and the light. And when you see all that, you're going to be more still. And that's holy, like it's quiet, I think. So calmness, stillness, maybe meditation. These kinds of things is what that I think is striking in me, at least right now.
Sounds like K-pop demon hunters.
What is that? What did they say on that? I love that music.
That's a show on Netflix.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm into the music, but what's the association?
The association, it's kind of like there's a demon within the demon hunters, or at least she has the demon marks. So a little bit of what they say, it kind of like yin and yang in a sense, you know.
Okay,
like embrace.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's it. That's exactly what I'm getting at. And they have demons in those lyrics of that song. What's the song that says, feel like, what is that? I mean, there's some good lyrics there. What does it feel like? And there's something about the demon that, you know, in those lines. I was just listening to that music. But yeah, that's the kind of the concept of hope. Like if you have the demons are within you, to get back to demons at the beginning, it would be that thing where you're understanding that you have all that within you in a way, and that, you know, to the wholeness is a holy kind of quiet stillness.
Okay. That kind of also could fit under the blasphemous emoji.
It definitely could. It definitely could.
Okay. Yeah. And lastly is the divine idea. Okay. So what is the most divine idea according to you?
Well, I think music might be there. You know,
that's it.
It might be one of the most divine things we can access and share, because I think you can access the divine however you can through experience. Like you can have these experiences that are divine, but you can't share them. You know what I mean? Like the spiritual experience I've had where I'm like present with God, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is that whatever that divine encounters you can have. I've had them multiple times. That you can have that encounter, and it's just that music is the thing that seems to come from somewhere else, that other people can share and participate in. The closest thing to that thing you can individually have a divine experience. I'm not saying all music is that, but it's how can, if everything is like you say, algorithms and ones and zeros, and this physical reality is just made out of bits or whatever, like it's a simulation the way you talk about it, I'll give you that. But music is not that. It comes from somewhere to here, and then when I experience it, I feel something, and somebody else can feel that same feeling, and there's so little behind it, there's almost no information in it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a resonance. And it's when you resonate, connected with another person, music's the best at that. So wow. It's special in some way.
I think that's the information though, but that's a cool way. Yeah, I agree.
But it comes from somewhere else. That is my point about music. Like I can make music, I can play notes and frequencies and stuff for you, but it won't do anything unless it's inspired, unless it's divine, unless it comes from something.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you could say it comes from the kingdom. Like to me it is divine, and like I agree with you.
What unifies more?
Music.
Nothing.
No,
nothing unifies more than music. I mean, I'm making that claim. I mean, tell me if you can think of anything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not divisive. I mean, it can be when you talk about style and lyrics and culture or whatever, but the sounds that vibrate, that make you nod your head, you can not like it, but it's not really divisive inherently. It's unifying inherently with whoever it resonates with it. And almost everything else is more divisive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I completely agree. And I feel like that's one of the gifts, like to me, you know, like family, but like in this case, like music is one of those gifts that unites us as humans. And it's in a sense, it's kind of like a common language, right? Like
It is
I speak
exactly a common
Spanish.
language. Yes,
Yeah,
but it's not in a stupid verbal words,
yeah,
language, translation. Happy birthday, the tune. Who doesn't like it? Who doesn't feel the same thing about it across the world?
yeah,
It's fundamental, like lullaby, da 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 da. Like, sorry, who's divided about those things? Who
yeah,
even Amazing Grace? Who hates it? Who
yeah. Some
who's
devil,
divided? I mean,
evil person
anybody
only.
that is anybody that wants to argue about that stuff, they've got other stuff going on. You don't think that it's the sounds are it's not doing the actual music. That's not what. It's just not divisive. It's unifying.
Mhm. That's so cool. Love it. Okay, we'll take it as the divine emoji. How do we end this? Like, do you wanna I don't know, me to like put a link to something, Emery, or upcoming podcast, stuff like that, like plug basically?
No, I don't have a podcast to plug, but obviously I'm always trying to promote my band Emery. That's the best thing I've got going. It is music. It's how I do make money, and it is fun. Is we get people together in a room, and it's always good. It's a good vibe at an Emery show. So I do recommend for everybody to have that experience. And we'll be, we're on tour. I don't know when this comes out, but through September and November, we have, tour dates in a good amount of the country.
Love it. Yeah, I'm going to feature you on the website. Been there, done that. Okay. Thanks, man.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.